The future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital.
It is right here at Power 102 Digital Wednesday. It's time now for Hard Talk, and we're talking Pan. Our host, Farid Ali, ably assisted by his special guests. I'm going to allow Farid to introduce his guests. Good afternoon, Farid. How are you?
Hello, good afternoon, David, and welcome to the general public in this evening's show of Hard Talk. Our special guest, Miss Julie Williams from Exodus Steel Orchestra, Republic Bank Steel Orchestra. How are you, Julie? How are you doing?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm fine, thank you. And you, Farid?
It's good to see you. I'm doing well, and I'm so happy to see you this afternoon. Thank you so much for making yourself available, and thank you so much to Republic Bank Exodus Steel Orchestra for taking the opportunity to share itself with us on our program. Thank you so much.
You are most welcome, Farid.
Accompanying me this evening is someone that is no stranger to Exodus Steel Orchestra, the man himself, Dr. Richard Tangyuk. I'm sure he brings a familiar recall, Julie. You all immortalized him in song with Dust in Your Face. And what year was that? I can't remember.
That was 1993.
1993.
Dust in Your Face was 1993.
So I took the pleasure of looking at Exodus's CV in terms of its panorama performances through the years. I don't like to take anything for granted, so I actually looked at it between 1992 and 2006, a 15-year period. Exodus Steel Orchestra placed in the top 13 times in that 15-year period, between 92 and 2006. And when I look at its performances from 2007 to 2023, we have a total of 7 top 3 performances between that time period. So Exodus is no small man by any means. I mean, that's a tremendous record.
Thank you.
This afternoon, we invited you all because it's so much history that we have to cover when we look at and examine the CVs of bands' performances through the years. Yes, just last year, you all took the opportunity to take us back in time a bit with a song, Tourist Lego. I know that this year, from my examination of the song of choice, we're looking at Arrow's Long Time. Tell us something about the choice of songs. In this particular year, you're looking at Tourist Lego. What has triggered the desire for that particular song? What about the song that lends itself to Exodus executing its performance?
Okay, so for 2024, our selection is Long Time by Arrow, which is from 1984. But to answer your question, what led to that song is a combination of factors. One, we have a process. Two, combine Pantry Maker rule was that you had to register your song by December the 15th. It was now amended to January 12th. However, let me explain Exodus process. We will ask the members to give their suggestions of what tunes they are willing to play. Guided by that, the rule allow for large band again to play a tune not of the current year but of past years once the band has not performed the song in a panel competition. So back to my process, players will give their opinions, having said no the rules, then the list will be shortlisted to about 5 songs. And I think this year we had learned DNA, Jump and Wave, Fairy, also on our radar was Free Up, which we already have on our repertoire, and of course, Long Time. So the band will learn a verse and chorus of those songs, and then it will boil down to what we say, the Paramus songs pick itself, which is the vibe that the players I get feeling towards the song. But of course, we are always guided by our arranger, Terrence B.J. Marcel, and playing a very key role in the selection for the choice of song will be our musical director, Dr. Pelham Goddard, of course, combined with the committee members who are Steve Darko, Spear, Anthony Rose, Kurt Edwards, Chevron Bourne, and the main man himself, our manager, Ainsley Mohammed. So that process, by elimination, led us to one of the 2 tunes between Fiery and Long Time. Well, say no more. You know what we selected, Long Time.
Dr. Tanyok, I know that you would have your take on terms of the tuner choice and how you feel about the music.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, Miss Williams. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Dr. Tanya.
I saw before the program started you were fixing your hair. You look good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the compliment.
I'm so happy to speak with you because I have had a burning question for Exodus for decades. And this question is, how do you get your pans to sound so good? Because in my opinion, Exodus has the best sounding pans of all bands. I think you're in a category by yourself. And I don't think it's only about tuning. It's not only about tuning. So what is the secret to Exodus?
I will try to answer as best as I can. And I will first it will say it takes us back to history because some of our pans, as you know, when we first started Exodus, we got pans from Desperados. And some of these pans still exist today. Having that, I mean, the history of our tuners who were deceased, Wallace, Leo Coker, they contributed to that. Our current tuner also will contribute to our pan sounding, and we cannot discount the way the members treat their pans and take care of the pans themselves, because that is totally important. So I will say our combination of, and even I forget to mention, Guppy, who played a long role in blending our pans, and most of our pans in our bands are pans made by Guppy, deceased. So, you know, those combination of factors maybe is the reason why our pans have that sound.
Wonderful. Thank you for explaining that for the listening public. And so, you know, I think if there were 30 marks awarded at Panorama for tone, Exodus would win. Hands down.
Oh, thank you.
It really is a spectacular sounding band, no matter what they play. I just think the quality, the blending of the bands, it's exceptional. So congratulations.
If you listen very carefully in the background, you'll hear our current tuner Mario. If you hear the song that's been blending the pans right now,
Yeah.
it's going on right now as we do this interview.
So the blending of the bands, is that something that happens throughout the season leading up to Panorama, or does it happen like in December and then it stops when everybody starts to plan?
No, it happens throughout the season, and I will say throughout the year because remember we are one of those bands that function throughout the year. So for the Panorama season, the full orchestra which will be used for Panorama will be blended throughout the season because we got a blend just before we started the Panorama season for two reasons. To have the pans well tuned, and the school was using the pans. We are getting another blend this week because we have preliminaries on Monday, and then there'll be another blend. So throughout the carnival season, the pans will be blended.
Right. So along these lines of blended and tuned pans, when you are waiting to go play in a competition and you in the hot sun, does that not affect the tuning of the pans while you're waiting?
Yes, I've been told so. But if you notice, our most time we are we are being judged in the night time. And if you pass our pans, you'll see that we have covers like for the bases that are in the sun. So for example, the 9 bases, due to their size, they cannot be put in a covered area. So all now they have covers over the surface of the pan to protect them from the elements. The ones that can be moved out of the sun, we move them. So there has been reason you have to move the pans because it affects the instrument itself. So we try to avoid that.
Right. It's a lot more involved than the layperson understands, right?
Yes, there's a lot of elements.
Yeah. If we could move to talk a little bit about arrangement. So a typical Panorama arrangement would have a certain structure and what we call in music sonata form. So there's an introduction, there's an exposition of the verse chorus, there's the development section, then typically capitulation, and then a coda or an ending. This is what we hear most of the time. What is your opinion? Possibly deviating in this third sonata form and doing
As you know, we are a band open to change. So where the music area is in Exodus, if our arranger and our directors and driller feel to change from that form, we are a band, we are open to that. I like saying that, you remember a long time when traditionally bands used to go with what you will call or define as a steel band song. I remember we Exodus went with a soca song. So I would say we are never a band that is afraid to change the modus operandi. But I will leave that will be up to Terrence BJ Mason how he feels because he may want to do something different. And of course, in discussion with Pelham and the driller. So I will not say no to that, but the responsibility of such a move will be ones who are the musical, the arranger, the director.
right. So as a follow-up to that, then, of course, it's a competition. Do you think, or does your arranger or Mr. Goddard think that the judges might be open to something a little bit out of the norm? What are your thoughts about that?
What I will say is always going to have something out of the box. How far out of the box is left to be seen. So maybe one can easily test the waters. And I mean, you see arrangers do those things. They try different things in their own out of the box way. And I think it's a matter of testing and testing, and then eventually acceptance is done. So I wouldn't, BJ being a very creative person, and I wouldn't put him past. And he always, little by little bit does something different. So yes, the answer to that will be yes, but again, to what degree? Because as you mentioned, it is a competition. So one do not want to expand way beyond that will be not in our favor because we're dealing with humans who are judges and there are guidelines. But yes,
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Farid?
you're most welcome. I'm not hearing. Sorry,
Fareed.
mic is mute.
Yeah. When we look at your song of choice, I know that you are the arranger, but you're involved in terms of the production of the music. What is your view? Some arrangers and some bands, when they choose a song, for instance, your tune of choice, Long Time by Arrow, you try to remain true to the performer's version of the music in terms of his interpretation of the music. You don't deviate. Some bands prefer not to deviate away from the melodic lines in terms of developing the music too much beyond the scope of what the original song piece is. What has been Exodus's approach to that? Are you all staying very much in tune with a representation of this song in its original verse, chorus, melody, rhythms, or have you all injected into the music new inflections in terms of more modern or modern inflections, or you're staying true to that core piece?
Farid, why do you want me to tell you what our arranger is doing before the competition? And Farid, why do you want me to share? But I will tell you this. The song will be, of course, in the original way it is played, and then the arranger will let his creativity flow. Always keep it in mind that the melodic somewhere along the line will be there. And I will leave it at that. But I don't want to get into what we are doing because remember, as Dr. Tanyok say, it is a competition.
Yeah. No, I can live with that answer. I can live with that answer. In fact,
Very
you've
good.
answered the question.
Thank you.
Because I've been moving from yard to yard and I've been listening, and sometimes when we listen to a lay person like myself, I'm not musical like yourself. When I listen, sometimes I listen and I'm hearing things that aren't really, in my view, synonymous with the original production of the song. So I try to envision what does an arranger think when he deviates along the melodic lines away from the original, take us on a journey before bringing us back to the original. So that is where my thoughts were.
But I am not an arranger neither, but been too many years in pan, but being more of a dramatist, arrangement to me is like a play. And if one is arranging and a the lyrics of a song will tell a story, and sometimes a arranger can arrange based on the story and take you to different moods. So it all depends on, I think, the creativity of the arranger to tell their story, but always keeping in mind that whatever's the melody of the song.
Thank you for that. And, Farida, I just want to tag on to your comment because, sometimes the arranger might do a variation, whether it's in the melodic line or rhythmic or harmonic, but it may not be apparent to a lay person, but it would be very apparent to a trained musician. So I'm just going to give you an example. This is a very simple example which you would recognize. So let's say the tune goes mi, re, do, and then they decide the tune is going to be in what we call retrograde. So now it's going to be do, re, mi. Now that's a very simple example that's recognizable to anybody. But if you have a more complex tune, right, with 25 notes in the verse, and now the arranger decides we're going to play those notes in a reverse sequence, that's not going to be apparent to the layperson, but it would be apparent to a musician. So what I'm saying, the point is that sometimes what you might perceive as this is not related to the original is actually related. So there are other examples of this. So for example, the melody could be the same, but the rhythm is now passed out into cells. And so the rhythm may not be in the original rhythm of the song, but when we analyze it, it's actually all based on the original, put together in components. Am I correct, Julie?
You are most correct. Yes, you are. And you have explained it well. So I hope Fareed has a better understanding now.
As a layperson, I do. As a layperson, your
Yes,
questions
yes.
fly over the top of my head, so I have to ask the questions in the way that I do.
You're a
Yeah.
late person, but your love of the instrument.
Certainly so. Tell us something about your choice of instrument. How does Exodus go about choosing the its breakdown of instruments, the number of cellos, the number of tenor pans, basses, tenor basses, quadrophonics? That's something that flies over the face of persons listening in the general public. I'm sure that there's a science behind that.
Well, first of all, there is the rule or the restriction by Trinbago, the parent body, which is that large bands are allowed to play between 100 to 125 players in all rounds, be it preliminaries, semifinals, and finals. That's one. Two, then it all depends on the number of players that your band have at the time. And we being a large band, we will have much more than that. And in terms of breakdown, we split it to the background, percussion half, and the front line. So there'll be in our band we don't have any quadros. So we have tenors, double seconds, double guitar, cellos, triple cellos, tenor basses, six basses, and nine basses, and the percussion. So it will be split along those lines.
Your tenors offer you your frontline pans and your tenors, double tenors, double seconds, allows you a certain level of power. Um, do you all emphasize in your band that much power in terms of? Are you willing to tell us how many tenors and double tenors you have, how much double seconds you have?
I don't want to go down. I would just say we are our registration this year has been totally awesome. We have our excess of the full complement, which means players may have to rotate, and we have a proper band for 125 to take part in all three rounds of the competition.
In terms of your instrumentation, does the choice of song lend itself to your choice of instruments in terms of the number of instruments in each area, meaning your tenors, double seconds, cellos, basses? Does the choice of song influence how many cellos, tenors, basses that you present on a night in terms of instruments?
To a certain degree, because remember, this is something we have been doing for years. It is a set amount that we know we have the science down to it, but it depends maybe when they arrange. Let's say, for example, he finishes the arrangement, and in his air he's not hearing sufficient, let's say, of the double the harmony pan, the double tenor. He may then maybe may either, well, at this he may not get more double tenor, he may transfer the music to another pan. And so there's a certain degree of influence with the number of pans. So we try to get as much pans in each section where it will facilitate his arrangement style. Hope that answer your question.
Yeah, that was a very good explanation. And just to follow up on that, so when you play in the Exodus Spaniard and the arranger's listening, you're hearing a certain balance in that acoustical environment. And then when you move to the Queen's Park Savannah, it's a different acoustic. So an arranger, I would imagine, if you could explain how it does, an arranger might say, okay, no, I need to hear more double seconds here, so I'm going to change this part of the arrangement. But then when you get to a different location, it's going to sound different. So how does the band deal with that kind of complication?
Well, that's an interesting question. At this stage, if he wants, let's say he's not hearing up, let's say he give the cello a line and he find that he's not hearing it enough, he can give that same lines to another pan that will strengthen it, or we say, or enhance it, because to the time frame and the limitation, getting players to come in. So he has to shuffle, for want of a better verb, to his music where it will be heard more. And they have done that. For example, when he goes to what we call a variation, he may give it to the middle part and he may have the double second plate as well too. So you get that voice in, but so that kind of way. So it depends on what is here. And even after you get adjudicated, any changes will be guided by the comments on the score sheet. So it's a combination of factors for whatever changes you want to make in terms of what he wants to hear in his arrangement.
Right. Well, if it's any consolation, I'll tell you, moving players from one section onto another part is very common in choir too. Especially here, because most choirs don't have enough tenors. So sometimes conductors will say, okay, these altos, you sing the tenor line, and they join us. So I understand exactly what you're saying. So I'm glad you raised the comment about judges' comments. So we're speaking to all band leaders about the whole judging process. And I want to talk specifically about this category on the score sheet, which is called general performance. And general performance carries 40 marks. And within general performance, there are 3 subheadings: interpretation, dynamics, and balance. So my question is, what is Exodus's understanding of interpretation in this context?
Well, we will understand just as what is stated there, what is described under interpretation, which is the ability of the arranger to initially state the composer's intentions and the skill of the steel orchestra in executing the arrangement and all the articulation therein. So put simply, is where the arranger put on the verse and chorus and the players play it. In layman language, that can be interpreted as that.
Okay, so, all right. So you're saying that interpretation is the skill of the arranger to put down the chosen piece, but there's a separate category for arrangement. So therefore, you see, my understanding of interpretation is exactly what you said, right? So if there's a separate category for marks for arrangement, why is there another category for interpretation? Or do they actually mean execution? In other words, how skillfully is the arrangement played, rather than the creativity? The creativity is in the arrangement. Once you put on the notes, That's it.
You know, that's an interesting point of view because we also have that same questions. I don't think I am at liberty to maybe respond on that because what you're asking there, because um when one read it by the letter of the law, one will come to what you have just said there. So I think that is something for the more musical expertise to maybe pay attention to. But we have asked that same question. I mean, if one is reading and what is penned there, you know, one will arrive at that same conclusion or interpretation that you have just mentioned. So I will leave that more for more the musical experts in my band. Maybe they are liberty to comment. I don't think I have that expertise there to comment, but I do see what you are saying, or agree with what you are saying there.
Yeah,
Understand what by reading this document, one would lead to that assumption. But I
right.
think a better person for discussion maybe Pelham or BJ, you know, that they can get into that better.
So I think, well, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think if more music directors, arrangers of bands were to pose this question to Pantrin Bego, what does Pantrin Bego mean by interpretation? What, what is, and there's nothing there that says execution. Do they mean execution when they say interpret? Now, there are also separate marks in another category for rhythm. Now, and I think that's 10 marks. By rhythm, I'm assuming they mean execution of the rhythm, because the rhythm is also included in the arrangement. Once you make the arrangement, there's a rhythm. So there can be separate marks outside of arrangement for rhythm. So I would assume what they mean by rhythm is how well is the rhythm executed. So why not call it precision in execution? So that there's no misunderstanding amongst the panel. Because let's say for example, BJ comes up with this amazing innovative rhythm, and a judge interprets that as we give him marks for rhythm, so he get 10 marks because this was such an innovative rhythm. But another judge is thinking rhythm in this context means how well were the players together. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so the larger point, which we've been talking to all bands about, is different people on the panel might interpret these criteria differently. And
I think there's a judges forum which one will assume will clear these ambiguities because if one goes to the score sheet with rhythm, it says that it's the ability of the arranger to effectively utilize the instruments of the engine room, the drum set, congas, iron beaters, and applicable percussion instruments during the performance. Rhythm should include the grouping of notes into beats, into bars, phrases, consistency in tempo, and good tight ensemble playing. So I guess it also comes up to just what you said there,
yeah, so
to a degree.
from that, and I remember as you read it out, I remember that wording because you talked about it last year on a different interview. So that actually would be a subset under arrangement, right? Not a separate category outside arrangement. Because when the arranger makes the arrangement, how he uses the rhythm section is part of the arrangement.
But maybe I mean, this is something, I mean, in your expertise, I mean, I guess that you can reach out to Pantrin Bego and maybe share your thoughts. And I mean, people are always open to new ideas, and it's something that is worth, you know, reaching out to the parent body.
Julia, previous on a previous interview, we had a dialogue where it was said, and I believe it was Junior Pouchette years ago, he had said that people come to see Panorama, not just to listen to Panorama. Last year, you all actually brought it as part of your presentation, and your song of choice being Tourist Lego. Someone who fit all the dynamics of a tourist and on stage as part of your presentation. So we got a bit of theater with a performance. What is your view? And this has been an infusion over the past few years, we've seen other bands do the same. What is your view in terms of in presenting your music, adding that bit much of theater to it? Is it that you see it as a good ingredient or something that can add value to the musical presentation? You see it as something that potentially could take away from a performance?
That's like a trick question. I think it adds value because the panorama has moved to that where there is the added drama, and like it or not, it becomes a part. It may not be a criteria on the score sheet, but one is of the view that it plays a subliminal role in the judge's mind, because imagine you playing a song and the you have the added prompts to go with it. It does something. We are all humans. That emotional part of us. It will trigger something to give you an edge. I am a review over someone who has not done that. That's just my this is the view of my view. It plays, and I being more of loving drama, I will be one in favor of that. It goes. I mean, let's face it, when you have all these added props and they are well synchronized with your music. I mean, that emotional part of your mind, it will do something to you. I mean, if I play Bear a Little Lamb and Dr. Tanya play that too, but a part of his performance, you see Mary with the lamb coming on the hill, and it goes and the whole and you hear the same timing, and the fleece, everything going together. Come on, there's a little edge. That little subliminal edge in the brain that will give you a 1 point. That's just my view.
Well, I follow you clearly and directly. I guess in another way of saying the same thing is, if the theatrics is executed with taste and in keeping with the theme, then the impact and the connection with the listening public, those in the grandstand, would lend itself to a crowd reaction and an atmosphere that will bring the music out, and it could and you can feed off of the vibrations there. It's not like you're just randomly using pyrotechnics and it has no place in the music in terms of it's not in keeping with any musical theme. It's just pyrotechnics or confetti. You just throw it out there. So I can see where your tourist Lego last year and your use of a tourist on stage really had that effect. So I'm looking forward to how you're going to put theatrics into long time this year.
Raise your hand.
When you set standards like that, you have to follow it. You have to trump and follow suit. You can't 1 year use the theatrics so effectively and then abandon it the other year. So the pressure is on.
Long time, man.
Dr. Tanya.
I just want to follow up on that comment, Farid, and I agree with what Ms. Williams said and what you said about visuals, theatrics, and so it can enhance the performance. But I'd like to know what Ms. Williams thinks about. I personally, it doesn't matter what kind of music you're playing, whether it's classical music, jazz, and calypso, there's a certain quality that comes from the music deep within. When you play in an ensemble, whether it be 10 people, 100 people, there's a certain energy that works in the music. Sometimes it works in rehearsal, sometimes it doesn't. I can't explain it, but you know what I'm talking about. There's a certain moment you will play that piece and everybody feels it so together. And I think this is this extra musical quality that communicates with the listener. And it has nothing to do with costuming. It has nothing to do with choreography. It's purely about communication through sound, through the music. What are your thoughts about that, Ms. Williams?
Well, you say that is like hearing our manager Ainsworth Mohammed speak. He's a firm believer that there's no need for all the theatrics. He's a firm, just as what you said, is all about the music. I mean, and he is one was kind of reserved in even having the confetti, because at the end of the day, what you're saying is correct. It's the music, and when that music really moves you, nothing else really on the emotional health should get you, because the music has a way to drive you. But we're all imperfect. So I would say is a gray area, because you are perfectly sound, but then we're dealing with humans who will be influenced by a visual which is not part of the music of the listening. So it can sway anywhere.
So I'm glad you talked about people who are swayed by the visual. So I don't know if you know this name, Andreas Schiff. Andreas Schiff is a world famous classical pianist. And in a lecture, he said, these are not my words, these are his words. He said, some people watch music, they don't listen to music. So we know there's a certain segment of the population, they are completely swayed by the visual, and they're not swayed by the actual music. So I'm not saying we should not have theatrics and costuming and all and confetti, but I'm just saying that when the musicians themselves bond together and feel this synergy in the music, it is so powerful. Only the most insensitive person in the audience would not feel that vibe. That's all I'm saying.
And I do understand and agree with you as well to what you are saying. But we are playing for the judges. So therefore, that have to extend to their feeling that when a band play, they must feel that, and therefore the champion band will come from that. But you are perfectly correct. It must move, not just everyone must be moved by the musical synergy that will bring out that great or grand performance.
Allow me to ask, Julie. Some bands have a pattern in terms of how they present themselves throughout the panorama season, meaning that we have the prelims, the semis, and the final. It is a point of view that a band may not go all out in the prelims. They would just give you enough and give you a taste of what they're putting on display for the season, and then you would. By the time you get to the semis, you add something more, and then by the final, you just put everything out there. Is it that your band, Exodus Steel Orchestra, shares that sort of view in terms of releasing its presentation incrementally through right up to the final, or what we see in the prelims is you put it out there, and we essentially don't expect changes along the way. Is it that by final night we should hear a different sound in terms of I'm not referring to your delivery of the music, but in terms of releases of different perhaps runs, progression, melodic development, that sort of thing.
Well, it's a competition, and as we proceed along the competition, there will be changes in the arrangement. These changes will be influenced mainly one by the judges' comment after your first round, and of course by the feedback of the arranger himself and the other musical directors. So it's very rare that a band will start and end with the same arrangement that the first round of judging that took place.
Wonderful. Which brings me to this question, Dr. Tangyok. Sometimes and Julie, sometimes what we hear from bands is that when they listen to the judges' comments, so when they read the judges' comments at the end of the various rounds, some bands find themselves, if they follow what is being said in terms of the comments, they find themselves moving away from an arrangement that was essentially theirs to performing an arrangement or performing the song more along the lines of what the judges are seeking. So in other words, what the public hears on a final night is more or less what the judges would have influenced, as opposed to what the band started out in their heads, in their mind's eye, in their musical minds with. Do you feel pressured by judges' comments in terms of recalibrating your music to suit what they would like?
I would say we feel pressured. I would say we are guided by the judges' comments because they may tell you stuff like, the runs on the middle pans are not clean, and one do not have to change the arrangement for that. That has to do with the execution of the music. So one will have to make sure that those runs are well executed, and things like that. I don't see it as a pressure. And I mean, when the judges, to me, and this is, I mean, when they're judging, they are not judging in any sense for the want you to change your arrangement. I think they're judging for the sense to enhance and give your arrangement the best that it can be. So more or less the comments is where one can make improvements. Sometimes they are maybe not hearing a part to client, and they may say that. Without one of pressure, that's just the view. I mean, having read the judges' comments, say, yes, you have commendations, and it's mainly where the arrangement can be improved. From what is put on, they don't tell you, well, change this or do that,
And I would imagine, you don't have to answer this question, but I would imagine you get conflicting comments from various judges for the same performance. I would
Yeah,
not.
because some may, we get different comments, and maybe conflict is a strong word to use. So people are sensitive.
Well, you don't have to use it, but I will
Right.
use it
So
because I
I would say
know it happens.
maybe get different comments, but you'll have to you have to find the best way that's suited for your band to listen to these comments, how you apply these comments to your arrangement. At the end of the day, you are the guiding force for your arrangement.
Right. So, as you and Farid were talking about that, I was thinking, where is the arranger during the performance of the competition? Is the arranger actually playing in the band, or should the arranger not be listening as close as possible to where the judges are located so that he or she, in your case, BJ, can hear what are the judges hearing from this vantage point?
Our arranger is normally either in the band or the front of the band. But as you know, Dr. Tanya, will be in music. At that time, is a hype, is an energy, and for them to sit down and listen. I mean, they are more hype than anybody else, even the players, So they are all like, the adrenaline is flowing with an arranger at that time before the band performs. And I don't think you will want to sit at a vantage point. I normally see BJ walking up and down, So we have persons who will listen from the band and listen and give us that feedback from that vantage point. But our arranger is on the band, is on the stage with the band. I remember days of old, Pelham used to be inside the band. Normally BJ is normally side to the front of the band. But they are all hype. They are all adrenaline is at the highest there. It's an energy as you described it. So
Right. They don't want to miss out on the excitement.
no. They are there. They are all there pumping, as we normally say, ready to explode.
I completely understand that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Practice sessions and life in a panyard is all about vibes and building the momentum as the season unfolds. I often say it's remarkable how pan people, pan men, pan women, how they gel and they relate to each other in a panyard on a night-to-night basis. How do you all build spirit with your players in terms of keep them motivated as the season unfolds? Because for laypersons like myself, when we listen to section practice, to our limited minds, it can sound a bit tedious for us. But for your players, you all are into the music and you understand what it is you're working at and what you're hoping to achieve. And then somebody like myself will hear the complete song and say, it's all sounding good. what is the science in terms of and in terms of your technique in keeping the players focused, in keeping them mentally ready for what you're preparing them for over a period of what's it, 6 weeks?
Okay, so first and foremost, there is a goal. And by means of communication, via technology, via in person, our goal is simply to be Panama Champions 2024. So just so we strategize, you keep them motivated that we have this goal and we have to work towards this goal. And we do so by many different things. Beside the music, you have interactions. You may have a night that we may have just a chat. People will share their opinions. But we keep at the back of the mind, what is the purpose? I mean, when you get all players aligned for that purpose, you are working towards a purpose. And part of achieving the goal will be the tedious section practice. We'll be playing the parts over 10,000 times, but that is about the goal. And then for this year, I would like to use the mantra which we are using to keep our players motivated. It comes from the song itself. Keep the momentum. Don't lose the groove. Yeah, yeah. And that is the line that we are keeping that momentum throughout the practice. The arranger keeping the momentum throughout his arrangement. The togetherness, the love, the family like atmosphere. Make a little joke, buy a little drink. Keeping all is a combination of factors that keep a band highly motivated or keep that band, or as we say, the eye on the prize. We know what we are going for. The Panama Champions 2024, long time, arranged by Terence B.J. Marcel.
Tell us something about music education within the band. I know that Exodus have a rich history in terms of EXO Cubs and in terms of preparing young players. Clearly, there's a mindset of succession planning involved, and I would imagine that you would be transitioning the young players into the senior band through the years. What is your taste for music education within the band in terms of Exodus preparation of players, in terms of learning music, learning to read music and read scores?
Well, having come from in the band when there was no one who could have read a musical score to a number of persons who can read. So, but it depends on the arranger. So, to answer that in one way, we have a number of players in each section who can read music, who can read a musical score. And that is because a number of them, either from their secondary school or from EXO Cubs, have learned to read music. And they have achieved at least up to grade 5, and not just music, not just playing pan, they play other musical instruments as well. And to add to that, the older ones who are in my generational cohort, we have also learned, because there was a program which was done by Kenneth Joseph as well as Pam Goddard, where they allow us older ones to become a certain degree of being music literate. So when Pelham brings a score, when the young ones may read faster, ones of in my age bracket, a score is not a stranger to us. We may read a little slower than the young ones, but we know the key signature, the phrasing, not sure the phrasing, we ask persons like Anthony Rose and Kurt Edwards, Siobhan Bourne, Ilori Waits, who are faster musical readers to assist us. But in every section, there are players who read music. And as I said before, it depends on the arranger. Pelham will score all his music. BJ will give you from his heart. So it's a combination of factors. And in terms of succession planning, we have EXO Cubs of over 150 children on a Saturday morning from ages 5 to 21, where they just not learn how to play pan. Music literacy is a key ingredient. So we teach the children from babies their musical, and we have a number of tutors who played a significant role in grooming these children. And as they get older and we see their ability, we, like for example, this year, quite a number of them, we invite to play with the big band.
Julie, I want to thank you for making yourself available to us this afternoon and for making the public aware of the inner machinations of how Exodus executes his work. You've been a lovely guest. Thank you so much for your time. And we wish you the very best of everything through the season coming forward here. Hopefully, we'll have you again and you'll oblige us after the season for another conversation.
Fareed, on behalf of Republic Black Exodus, I'm thankful to be here. And gentlemen, do have a wonderful afternoon.
And all
Enjoy
the
your
best
day.
to
Thank
you
you.
for Panorama 2024.
Thank you, Dr. Tanya.
Mr. Colin Graves, thank you so much for making yourself available to us. We seeing you there, and maybe you could lend your voice to the conversation. Are you there with us? Are you hearing us? To the listening public, this afternoon we have no other than BP Renegade Steel Orchestra. Joining us is Mr. Colin Graves, and I'm also seeing Mr. Duvon Stewart. I'm accompanying him. So thank you so much for these two gentlemen and for lending your voice and for making yourself available to us this afternoon. Mr. Graves, how are you? I think he's tuning in there. Duvon, if you're there, you feel free to turn on your mic and your audio.
Mr. Chris, are you hearing us?
I think he's having some technical issues.
Okay. All right. Maybe you can chat with Duvon. Duvon, please come to your microphone. Come on stage, please.
Duvon, how are you doing? Good afternoon. But Dr. Sanyok, as we await Mr. Stewart, I see he's stealthily walking in. Renegades are here with us. BP Renegades, the defending champions.
12-time champions, huh?
12-time champions.
You think they're going to make it 13 this year?
Well, you know, we have to be balanced here. Yeah? Don't let your bias come through. Don't let your bias. We have a listening public.
Yeah. Well,
Mr. Stewart.
Desperados also has 12, you know. So.
All right. We're talking to Renegades now. Don't mention this.
No, but Renegades, I'm sure they're waiting to tip the scales and to just get that edge to tell Desperados, you know, we at one time we were chasing, but now we pass. You're looking at us ahead of you now.
Yeah, that's the gist of the question.
Yeah.
So we are standing by, folks, for Duvon Stewart to join us, of the arranger for BP Renegades, and Colin Greece.
Hello?
He's here with us now. Nice, and he's hearing us.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm here now.
Great.
Good day, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. So, Mr. Stewart, it's an honor to chat with you. You're a legend in Pan, and I'm a great admirer of yours. So,
Thank you very much, man. You hear me, right? You all hear me? Good afternoon, everybody on Paul 102.
we can hear you. We can hear you very well. So, my first question to you, Mr. Stewart, is when you make an arrangement for Renegades, how much of the arrangement is actually completed before the band starts practicing? Do you give them a section of it, or are you giving the section leaders the whole arrangement before they start practicing?
I do music by sections. I do it by segments. How I arrange the music for the band. I do it by rote. I write the music, present it on the musical sheets, and I have it emailed to the captain of the band, and the captain disperses the information onto the various section leaders, and which I must commend BPTT Renegades for, because an initiative was taking place back in the early 2000s where the late, great Mr. Desmond Waite was a lecturer at the University of the West Indies, and most of the players at the stage side level were not music literate in terms of reading music, but they got the opportunity to go to school in UTT to learn to read music. And a crop of the stage side members were in heavy attendance in that program, and they came out very, very successful, where that I can take the time to transcribe the music before going to the Panyards, email it to them, and they distribute the music accordingly in my absence if I'm not there. If I'm there, I leave them to distribute the music likewise too. But it's a general thing that happens with the organization, not just for Panorama, but on our classical side also too. That applies because the players, they can sight read and they apply themselves musically to bring the music. But on the Panorama basis, I go about writing the music in sections, and I put together the music in such a way that I have a vivid idea of what I am going to do before entering the Panyard.
Right. So it's kind of in your mind, if not every section has what they're actually going to play in hand. So
Yes.
what percentage of your band members actually read music right now?
If you're taking it from the stage side level, I will say about 75 to 85% of the players read music.
No wonder all you win last year. You have a big advantage because if 75, 80% of your players could read, you move in much faster.
Because we normally do something around this time of the year called the Fola Journey concert tour series in France, in Nantes, in different cities in France, and the music that Mr. Desmond Wade had presented to the band were all done, transcribed on score sheets, and the players were just reading off their heads, just having the music done in such a way that the work will be so much less for Mr. Desmond Wade when he was there. So the players were well received in that aspect. And again, the initiative by BP to have this program expressed onto the membership was well received and was a great initiative. And it helps me as the arranger to go home and to do my homework and transcribe the music in such a way so that when I come in the Panyard, I say, take it from score 95 and we go until 105. And it's done there already. They have it there. I don't have to literally go behind a pan and show anybody anything other than they may be more, I guess something that might be one of the little tweaking or something like that, just a Panyard vibe thing. But the work of me doing music for the band is 95% done at home. 4 a.m. in the morning, when I hear the birds singing, when I hear the place quiet and I see Trinidad so sleeping, and I get to work and do the magic and have that orchestrative presentation becomes a musical tapestry on the Grand Savannah stage.
I am so happy to have the opportunity to speak to you. So I'm going to tell you now, last year's Panorama performance was out of this world. I listened to the whole competition, and I was online and listening to comments from people all over the world. And several people will comment about their favorite band, and now correct me if I'm wrong. I think you beat the second band by 1 mark. It was
I beat the second band by 4 points.
By 4 points. Well, it should have been more than 4. Should have been more than 4.
The judges' decision is final, but at the end of the day, victory number 12 came to 138 Renegades, and we felt very elated and happy with it because, again, the process behind the success journey, it was a very challenging one for us, but we knew what we were up against, and the band is a well-oiled machine. The organization by itself is a well-oiled organization. Everything happens so with the tick of a clock going around from
right.
And we having it in such a way that every individual from the board level right down to the membership has their role and function in playing and doing things in making sure the band becomes successful. So there is not really the tension or the heavy anticipation of what is going to take place during the season. So we are so well connected, and we talk so ever often in the Panyard when we during practice, after practice. Again, the camaraderie and the personality that I have with the players, it's just like added a negative to a positive on a magnet, and everything just sticks and gels and goes from point A to point Z so seamlessly, effortlessly across the grid that I could safely say BPTT Renegades is the greatest steel band in the world.
So, thank you for saying that. And I have a question for Mr. Greaves. So, how much of this culture of BP Renegades is actually part of the legacy of Jit Samaru?
Oh, that's a great question. So, good afternoon. Thanks for having us today for a very important conversation. The reality is that, well, actually, today, let me start by saying today was the funeral of Selwyn Mohammed. Selwyn Mohammed was actually the arranger who arranged for Renegades right before Jit Samaru came to the band. He's the brother of Bobby Mohammed. Everybody would be more familiar with Bobby Mohammed. Selwyn Mohammed started off in the end of 1967 with Renegades. And that was him coming to the band was a pretty interesting story. Bobby Mohammed and the National Steel Band would have just completed their first tour, and they were on their way back to Trinidad. So Selwyn went to the airport to meet his brother and the team that was coming back. But Renegades was in the airport playing music as part of the Welcome Home entourage. And at that point, he would have had a conversation with some of the band members. And within 2 weeks, he started arranging for the band. So at that point, Renegades was still notorious fighters, some of the bad boys in town, the Bajans and stuff like that. And Selwyn started working with the band in a musical way. And he was the guy who actually introduced Bertrand Birch Kelman to Renegades. So Selwyn Mohammed then brought Bertrand Birch Kelman because he was tuning for them in South for Cavaliers and stuff. And then everyone knows that Birch Kelman then brought Jit Samaru to Renegades. So today is actually a pretty interesting and significant day that we're having this conversation in terms of how Jit ended up and the legacy that he would have had. Of course, from when Selwyn would have started working with the band was doing horribly, never did well in Panama, didn't have a concert stated because the focus was more on physical fighters and not so much on the musical side of things. He moved the band from being a stateside of 10 to about 35 to growing the band, and then expanding their repertoire. Now he didn't stay with the band very long, only about 3 years or so, but most of the seniors and the elders kind of see that as the transition of where the band started becoming more musical. That's where we won our first bomb competition in the carnival, playing in a monastery garden. And then after that, but he only stayed with the band for about 3 years. So by 1970 is where Birch Kelman recommended that Jit Samaru come to the band. And that's where he started molding the sound of the band. Of course, we know when you think about where he's from and that Surrey village and the influences of what would be the parang style of rhythmic patterns and stuff like that, which I guess is, if you listen, is still very much present in Renegades today. We have a very, very rhythmic pattern of how we perform our music. And you know that Renegades, Dr. Jit Samaru, and Bertrand Birch Kelman worked together for 40 unbroken years. So with that, of course, when you have a team that gels so well and works so well together, that's where the legacy starts being created. That's where you have 40 unbroken and years of consistency. It molded our sound. People know what Renegade started sounding like. Our use of, for instance, the original thirds and fourths pans, which we still use today throughout the band primarily, gives our front line a very high-pitched and distinct and crisp sound. And not to mention, we're also familiar with how Jit put a lot of music on the middle pans, which still is kind of iconic and synonymous with Renegades today. So if you look at Renegades over the years, we still maintain some of the elements of the legacy of Jit. Of course, many of our players, including our arranger, would have grown up playing in the band under Jit in some sort of way and has, great respect for him. And today, a lot of our stateside music that the band still performs today is from the Jit Samaru era. So if you, in that question, how much did Jit Samaru's legacy impact the band? I mean, it's tantamount. You can't even put that into a measurable title. Just say enormously. And that's why if you come to 138 Renegades, we had our Panyard, there's a huge mural of Jit on the wall still, because, it's definitely part of our legacy and part of our family.
Mr. Stewart, for those of us who visit the yard on a night-to-night basis, we would see how involved you are in terms of your theatrics and your emotional involvement with the music and how you connect with the band and those of us who stand by and listen. Um, you're almost one with the yard. You're not the type of arranger that is aloof and quiet at all. Tell us, how do you connect with your players and get them to follow your musical ideas? Not I know it wouldn't be just as simple as reading a score or uh, repetition, but they have to feel Duvon Stewart and feel what is in your heart and your mind and understand your tastes and your musical inclinations to properly represent what it is you are presenting to them. How do you connect? How do you find yourself um, getting that blood flow between your players and yourself fluid and moving at all times?
That is a good question that you asked. I've been around the band since 1990 as a player, and I left in 1999. And the individuals that were there at the point in time, and some are there presently in the band, they know me to be a very jolly individual, very free-spirited, comedian, outspoken, emotional. And I've seen Panorama in different on different levels where bands and arrangers have their own style and personality in bringing themselves to life. And I've seen a monotony taking place where the person who is really the forefront individual in making sure that music becomes connectable to the individuals that plays the music has to do something out of this world to connect with the players who is playing the music. I've started to arrange for the band on a Panorama level at 2012. And we were going through the period where the transition period, life after a band with its premium arranger. We had Dr. Jet Samaru with the band for many, many, many years. And he had a way in how he was doing his magic and creating his magic to connect with his players. And if there's one word I could explain that individual, that giant, is that he was silent. He was silent and he was making his music speak for him. We went through the process of looking for the replacement, and they came about recouping me in 2012 to be a part of the band. And I was like self-searching myself to how can I get this music to come across, because one, I am not Chid Samaru. I'm a new project on the table to take the band to a different dimension. And by doing so, 2018 was really the unveiling of a connection, a kind of personality that the players found very fitting, that they connected with, which was everybody hear what the arranger is saying through a microphone and speakers in the panyard, so they could have an idea of what section he's speaking about and what it relates to the arrangement. And me, Duvon Stewart, the personality that I have with the band is that they see me as, yo, you are our leader. You are going to take us to this destination, like a pilot flying a plane from point A to point B. And by doing this unanimously across the board, there are no secrets being hidden from any player in the band where the information of the music is being taken place. And I could go back to 2018. For the viewers who are listening and viewing this program here now, they could go onto YouTube and to have a view of the Year for Love story, which was a story that was synonymously with my journey in becoming what I am today, to the point where I used the microphone. I told the story of what every section of a music, what relation it has to the theme of the song. So when I have the opportunity in demanding what this section represents, and by translating the information onto the players, they act accordingly and send that same emotion into that section, and always waiting to see what is coming next. So it has worked for me in doing the just due to have this personality to connect with my players vocally 100% across the board, but with respect, love, and teamwork, with a family-oriented base background that we all have. It's something that we all live with from the day that I came onto the scene as the arranger for the band. So for the people that came to the Panyard for this season, last season, and a couple years before, they have seen something that they have never ever seen in a Panyard, where an arranger is so outspoken, speaking to the players and even speaking to the audience. Okay, go and buy your t-shirts. The gift shop is open. The cafeteria is open. The band is playing the song. Come in the Savannah, support the song. I even explain what this part represents to the audience, that they could understand visually and listen what the band is doing musically. Again, as I made mention, I treat music like theater. I treat music like theater to the point where I make the listener becomes the individual. Once you are blind, you will see. Once you are deaf, you will hear, because the emotions that sends through BPTT Renegades is so infectious that we can make you, the music can make you become so real and pure with the personality that I have in front of the band. It's not a gimmick. It is not a show off or high ego persona that I have. It's just that I am looking for new ways in connecting with my players, with my supporters, with my community, with the people in the audience. You never know. Next 10, 15, 20 years, some new arranger may come on the scene and have a different way in connecting with his players. But if I see this fit for me and it's working, if you're selling 100 cheese pie on Frederick Street in less than 1 hour, will you change the ingredients?
Certainly not.
So I'm doing something so great with the band that they leave me to be me. The board, the executive, the organization leaves me to be me in order to connect with the players and the music. And it has worked from 2012 when I came until today, because I'm speaking about my era, what that timeline that I have. It was great, and it was a learning process along the way too, because I had my share of disappointments, because no arranger wants to go into Panorama and lose. We all go with the mindset to win. And at the end of the day, we have to look for different mechanisms, different ways, different things to do to make your players feel comfortable, to feel welcome, to feel like they're not walking on eggshells, just to connect the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and making sure that all the information that comes from me is what is going to be expressed onto the instrument, and the players just act the role and responsibility in performing it. And that is the key tool for teamwork. The key tool for teamwork. You may come to the Panyard this year and you may see me in front of the band with a microphone. I may walk out, I may listen, I may talk on the microphone, and I do not know at no time single-handedly call out one individual and make them feel less of themselves. I go to them personally and say, yo, I'm hearing it, let me fix it. And with that now, everybody realized that, okay, it's not about me, it's about the organization and the band. And we have to get this thing right. We have to get this whole teamwork clicking, this whole engine rolling. Because again, working with BPT, I would like to see the day that if I retire from Panorama or retire from the band, some other arranger come into this great organization and see how it operates. They will feel so happy to know that all the I's have been dotted, all the T's have been crossed, good oil in the engine, good brake pad, good suspension, and it rolling sweet and smooth. So the personality and togetherness and love and teamwork that I have for my players, it just transcends from me right down to the band. So everybody operates accordingly when we ask at any point in time.
Well, Mr. Duvon, your track record speaks for itself. I mean, it's spectacular. So congratulations. But I want to touch upon something you said a couple minutes ago. You said that the board and the management, they leave you to do what you do, and we hear stories where other arrangers arranging for the band, they put down their ideas, they start to teach it. The band manager want him to change something. The sponsor want him to change something.
Full stop. Never by BPTT Renegades. Never. Never by BPTT Renegades. I'm going to stop you with a question. We at the organization or the band BPTT Renegades, there's no micromanaging of no individual portfolios that represents the band going forward. The president do what he has to do. The captain do what she has to do. The treasurer does what she has to do. The arranger do what he has to do, because it comes down to trust. It comes down to trust.
Right.
And once the band hire an arranger is because they trust that individual. The track record that I had before coming to BPTT Renegades was all about trust. And I was never one day, and from 2012 to now, was being inveigled by anybody, past and present, at the board level, even as you mentioned, the sponsors, to make changes to any part or anything that is being done where the music part is concerned, because they trust who they have at the helm to do the work. So let me put that out there first.
Okay, so a question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, a question for Mr. Graves, and maybe he may not want to answer this. Perhaps Duvon is not aware that the sponsor or some other party is coming to the management to say, we ain't like this part of the arrangement, So you are on the front line to deal with that. Does that happen or not? Or you don't want to talk about it?
No, we can talk about it. I mean, similarly, I would reiterate what Duvon says from our sponsors' perspective. They don't get involved in that. They trust that the band does what the band could do. They trust that the arrangers. And now, just to put a little bit more shape and context on it, now when Duvon says that we leave him alone and stuff like that, you also have to realize, going back to what he said previously, in terms of the relationship that he has with us, with the management, with the captain, with the players, he would often sometimes ask, like he would tell you every morning, he would call the captain and say, we going good? Because it's not a level of arrogance. The point is that he's doing music for everyone. So sometimes you would even see him stand in the yard and just watch the vibe of the players in our part. And they don't have to say anything to him, but sometimes he might find the energy not where he wants it to be in a particular part. And the next night you'll hear him come and, all right, tweak this, move these drops. Let me do that. And similarly, I think if someone really feels strongly, I mean, it's also not a dictatorship. Music is like fashion, is like clothes, is like food. Everybody's not going to like everything that you do. But the point is that you're not going to go in the chef and tell the kitchen and tell the chef, hey, don't put no salt in the meter. The point is that that's that chef's meal that he's putting together. And at the end of the day, you can either eat at that restaurant or you can go to another restaurant. So with our sponsors, they are very supportive of everything, because they also trust that we have a well-oiled machine, and that we make these conversations and we have consultations, and that there's no level of arrogance on any one person's part. And that's where the teamwork comes in. Someone would easily always say, how you feel about this? And it doesn't have to be in a big announced or pronounced way. It's not a dissertation, it's not anything like that. Sometimes it's just a simple conversation like this. If you're in a part, you find it too long, what do you think? Or similarly, the captain might tell Duvon, and I find I'm not hearing this part enough, and he will evaluate that on his own merit and then come back and determine, I hear it as much as we need to hear it. Or he might determine, okay, let me double up on X, Y, or Z other lines. So the sponsors, they understand their role and where the support comes in as well. What they have done pretty well is they invest in the human resource capital of the organization. They invest in our ability to train the young ones. They invest in our ability to have a music school, in our ability to buy new instruments, in our ability to do training of the management team and stuff like that, so that we can have an organization where people understand collaboration, teamwork, where one person's role ends, roles and responsibilities, respect for each other, and things like that. So we it might sound crazy to the average user, but we really have a very great thing running there, you know. We all, I mean, yeah, we have arguments or we disagree on things, I would say, but generally, we're good. Like, we all understand each other's role. Everybody does what they're supposed to do. It's like one big puzzle that always comes together very nicely. I sit back and I trust that while he's doing the music, he's trusting that we're conceptualizing a complementary uniform or a complementary this. And then he would call and say, what y'all thinking about X, Y, or Z? Same time, we would trust that the properties and facilities team is doing their job to know, okay, people are coming to the panyard. I don't even have to tell them, okay, it's time to repaint the wall or upgrade this, because everybody kind of knows where their roles overlap. And that being said, even if someone says something, it's not taken in a negative way, or it's not taken as a dictatorship or as instruction, but more of an inquiry, because we all understand the end goal and the end product that we're trying to arrive at.
Yeah, wonderful. That sounds like a perfect situation. Perfect.
You need
So-
to you need to be there to come and feel it and see it. Let's beat
Yeah.
it, beat the way.
I know
Yeah.
Farid is there all the time. Farid is always passing through. We haven't linked up officially as yet, but I know that he's always there. But the energy of this energy is very important, and music and energy and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
and we always say, you see, the type of energy you invite into the space, we try our best to maintain positive energy. So when we talk to the players, even if you have to get buff about something, it's done in a constructive way. It's not done in a disrespectful manner. I don't cuss out and them kind of things. We don't operate like that, you know. We really are able to manage how we speak to each other. We're able to manage how everybody engages, because we understand that the energy we put out into the space is the energy we receive. So when people come there every night, we understand as well that they're coming to see us rehearse, but in their minds, it's also a show they're coming to see. So some nights we engage the audience. Some nights we do trivia with them. We welcome them.
Yeah.
If special guests come to the yard, we engage with them. During breaks, the education and marketing team will do different giveaways and different stuff like that, so that people feel very engaged in the space as well, because it's all about the energy. And we think once you get the energy right, and everybody comes into the space, that resonates, that grows exponentially. That's everybody telling another friend, oh God, Renegades is my band. That brings the vibe to the savannah. That means that everybody's going to stay to see if we're playing last, like last year. The last band, everybody's going to stay. And, you know, it's the energy. So I think getting all of those things right is very important.
Duvon, Renegade's ability to be compelling and effective is essentially linked to not just its music, but its theater. If we look at your 2019 performance with Hookinman, you actually reenacted on stage that whole issue between the man and the woman, and him being put out of the house, and you were very much well involved there. In fact, you were the man. When we looked at the 2023 performance with Black Man Feeling the Party, again, you brought that theatric on stage with Stalin's wife also. It lends us to your tune of choice this year, DNA. I'm not asking you to give us any intro as to what theatric you're coming with, but your ability to, and Renegade's ability to wake up the grandstand and have the grandstand sitting there wondering what they're going to do tonight. Where does that come from within you? Are you the brainchild of those theatrics, or this is something that you?
That is something that happens collectively within the organization, the arranger, the board, the captain, Colin, and we sit and we navigate what we are going to do next year, or what we're going to do this year, what we're going to do the next year in terms of the theme of the song. Panorama is a show. When you have a patron paying $300 to come and see an event with 10 of the world's greatest steel bands. You are putting on a show. How will it look to you as a patron sitting in the audience, coming to view Panorama with all 10 bands coming on and just play and come off the stage for 8 minutes, 10 bands? How will you feel? Is there any sense of enjoyment there for you? I believe your answer is no. You want to see something that could tell you, okay, I'm looking forward to see what is going to happen for the band the next year. And Renegades has always been a trend-setting band. Even before I was the arranger for the band, we were always thinking out of the box to be the wow factor. When I came to become the arranger in 2012, again, we were just evolving, trying to live the life of life after Dr. Jit Samaru, accepting it and accepting changes as it came along. And I could start by saying from 2017, when we did, what do you name of that song, boy?
Good morning.
Good Morning from Peter Ram, Barbados. I did the arrangement for the song, and I was kind of doing a pictorial musical story of making the visitor who is listening from the audience about what Carnival Good Morning is. The Camboulet, you heard the clock, the bell ringing at the introduction, which means the 4 bells that ring. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, it's Juve. And it took people time to understand what we were doing with our performances. Yeah, for Love, it was all about the fire and all about making people to understand that once you do wrong, you go in hell. This is how it looks like, fire. Let's bring this world to peace and love. Hooking Me, it was all about the video for me. For example, Famanapi got a call from his girlfriend. He was never married to her, with 2 kids. She says she cook. She want to talk. He was in his studio doing what he was doing, came home, saw the plate of food, and she started saying she can't take it no more. She want to go. But he was telling her, you hooked me. Here's my girlfriend. I love you. So at the end of the day, when I look at the video, it had 2 sides that I could have played as the arranger and how to bring across that story. 1 is either to marry her, or 2, either to divorce her, get rid of her. But when I look at the video extensively, they both had 2 kids. So to keep a community and a family together, I decided to marry her. So at the ending of Hooking Me, you saw me take off my clothes, and you saw the jacket and waistcoat and tuxedo. Somebody come on looking like a bride. Big up my girl, Kimmy. Yeah, call him big friend. And that was just starting the theater production of what the patron is paying for. So when Renegades come to the stage the next year, wrong again, they're looking for something. What is this theater about now? We came second, but the judge's decision is final. In 2023, we did Black Man Feel Intyre Party. And I'm going to make it clear. I didn't do this song because Black Stallion died. I didn't do this song because Black Stallion died. I did this song because at the point in time in selecting a song, there was not any song for me to work with at the point in time. This song was selected on the 27th of December, 2022. He died on the 28th of December 2022. And it was so fitting at the point in time to have this song resonate, because back in the days, Kitchener, DeForsto, Sparrow, these brothers were dominant in their delivery and their offering on the steel pan fraternity with their contribution of music for bands to play. But there were some songs that were so infectious below them that nobody never really took to heart to listen to and to give respect to play to. So when I came upon Black Man Feel Intyre Party, I called the captain, Mrs. Candice Andrews Brumont, And I told her, say, yo, I'm feeling 2 songs, I'm feeling Black Man Feeling to Party and I'm feeling Bun Them. She said, you see Bun Them, it might have a kind of year for love event. You see Black Man Feeling to Party, you have everybody singing in the song. I said, all right, good, that's the song. And as the season went along, we were all looking for the wow factor to bring that theater on the stage. And I believe it was Colin was like, yo, Black Stallion wife is there. She's alive. Let's warm her heart with comfort. Let she feel so appreciated knowing that no band at that level never really paid appreciation and love to the work that Dr. Leroy Callis did for the culture in Trinidad and Tobago.
And also, Duvon, remember we said that in the song he's singing to her. So what better?
Yeah, he was singing to her. The second verse was everywhere Joey playing, the 2 people sure to be there was we. So he was talking about his wife. And I was like, okay, boom, get Patsy on the side of the stage. And nobody in the band, no player in the band knew what was going to happen. Everybody was shocked by when I was looking at my left and I did my hand and I said, come. And they saw this blue hair individual gracing the stage. The Savannah was like, wow. A man told me, Duvon, you make me feel like Renegades was in 1979 doing Penny Lane because the crowd was in an uproar. And I look back and watch at the players and all the players was just was like an added nitro to the band. And that's like another level. We took it to a different level. The audience was just on a different level. They saw something that they wasn't expecting to see Mrs. Callis come across the stage and join the band and just enjoying the good music that the band has to offer. So for 2024, there's a question mark by it, and I'm going to leave a question mark by it because BPTT Renegades will always be a trend-setting band where Panorama is concerned because it's a show and we are providing a service to the patrons who pay the $300 and the $400 to come and watch this production, but yet still keeping it music friendly and music clean.
So, Duvon, can I follow up on, thank you for those comments. I want to follow up on something you just said, that BPTT Renegades is a trend-setting band. Now, Fareed had asked me to kind of focus on the technical aspects of the music. So I want to ask your opinion about something to do with arranging. So here in Trinidad, when we hear arrangements for Panorama, we hear development in various parameters of the music. We hear a lot of melodic development. I would say that's the predominant parameter. We hear development in rhythm. We hear development in harmony. We hear development in texture, how many pans are playing at a particular point in time and how it varies. But we don't hear development in the parameter of meter. Why is that? And what are your thoughts about it?
I believe every arranger has a creative scope in how he or she does his or her work, And the most that we could do is to appreciate what he or she does, because if it wasn't for the grandmasters and virtuosos in the earlys, Duvon Stewart would have never adopted a style that he has right now. And I may not take all the box that an individual is looking forward for, but at the end of the day, I'm playing music to be adjudicated by 7 individuals or 5 individuals, but yet still I have a global population of over 4 million, 5 million to treat with music. Can I please all of them at the same time too? No, but I have to choose wisely in how I go about doing my craft and making the masses understand what I am doing with the music, because everybody has their own style, their own flavor, their own taste in doing what they want to do with their creative space in doing a reproduction of a composition that was done originally by the singer and composer to put on the instrument, because it's very, very technical and ticklish. Because when judges give you remarks, one judge could give you, you're smiling, you know what I'm coming with, right? One judge could give you a remark on something, and the next judge will give you a remark on the same thing, but it confuses you now, the individual in the creative. What are we going to do now?
Not only confuse you, but there are conflicting comments. That's why I don't show up at the panyard. I afraid a bottle in my head. People know me, right?
I understand, and I get where you get. I got the gist of the question, and it puzzles me sometime. And I heard Dr. Jet Samaru said this sometime. What do I have to do again? What do I have to create again? What do I have to make them understand? And the answer to that, be yourself. Because no individual who is sitting in an aircraft from Piaco to JFK will leave their seats and go to the pilot and tell the pilot, I don't like how you're flying the plane or no. You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah. So now let's segue into the criteria for judging, because we've been speaking to a lot of band leaders, and
Colin, you could have taken a rest, no, Colin. You could have taken a rest. The interview was on me. Go ahead, Michelle. Go ahead, Doctor.
Yeah. So, some people are more willing to talk about it openly than others. But it seems to me, reading what is on a Panorama score sheet and the marks awarded for certain categories, there may be some possibility, in fact, I know it happens, that various members of the panel have a different understanding by what Pan Trinbago means in that category. So I'll give you an example. Let me just find my notes here. There's a category called general performance, and that carries 40 marks. But within that category of general performance, they list interpretation, dynamics, and balance. Now, so in my view, interpretation is part of the arrangement. Once you put down those notes, you have interpreted the original song. But there's a separate category for marks for interpretation. So I just wanted, the bigger question is, what do you think about the criteria as it stands now for Panorama judging? Either of you can answer that.
I could answer that. I believe the score sheet, it gives the arranger and what is needed of him or her to do to tick the boxes to get the highest points possible, rather than him being himself in what he believes, what he wants to do. And by saying this is that some of the criteria that resonate in a score sheet from Pan Trinbago that the judges get to articulate a music that they have presented to them from the bands. When we, the arrangers, see things like this, I'm saying me, we tend to do things to please what the criteria is about. And it kind of takes away us from our creative space in doing what we want to do. And I had something in the past where I never wanted to see score sheets and listen to score sheets or read score sheets or stuff like that. And I say, yo, Duvon, let's take our time and go through it with a fine teeth comb and see what they're saying and from what they're not saying in terms of interpretation and general performance and reharmonization and redevelopment of motive developments and stuff like that. and I got a gist of what individuals may see or like or want to be wrong. But it's very, very ticklish because you may have a judge 1 year to deal with in his liking, and the next year that judge is not on the panel again. So what do you do to wow this factor to go forward? And hence the reason by saying this, the question that I always wanted to ask, we in the creatives as arrangers, are the judges capable of doing what we do as arrangers to put on the table?
So
Duvon, go ahead, Dr. Tayo. No problem.
So, is there any mechanism in place currently where all the bands that are competing in Panorama have a say in the selection of the judges?
And I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
What, and should it be that way? Should it not?
I don't have any. I will not grace a comment on that. No, I believe the organization has this.
What do you think? What do you think, Colin? What do you think? Should the bands have a vote, or let's say a process of nominating certain judges?
I mean, I think by now the body that runs the competition, there are people who, when they put out calls for interest and stuff like that, who are interested. From what I found out is that some people they approach are not interested, and then there's some people who may be unfamiliar because, as Lufo just mentioned, if you're not a chef or you're not familiar with culinary arts, evaluating a meal, how true or it's a fact is your evaluation? It looked pretty in the plate, or I like how this tastes. It might not stay true to the proper tenets of culinary arts. So similarly, when evaluating creative arts, it's like on one version we say don't put creativity in a box. Let people explore their creativity. It's very subjective. There's some people who love certain bands and their arrangers or arrangements, and there are other people who think. I mean, we've heard every year an arrangement that wins that thousands of people love is also hated by thousands of people. So the reality is that you have to figure out what's the best way and the fairest way to come up with a transparent process. Now, the good thing is that if you do have a problem with a judge that's selected, there is a process that you can file a petition or complain or submit to have that judge removed. And I think that that's also, at least it's not that you've been nailed against the wall and you don't have a way out, But I think in the selection process, more or less, I mean, people seem to be okay. If you have a problem with a judge, there's a way to deal with that. And we've seen that has happened in the past where judges have been removed from competition because someone raised conflicts of interest or different things like that. So
I don't have a problem with no judge that sit on the high seat.
We know that.
I have no problem, none whatsoever. Who they bring, I play music for the judges and the people.
Yeah, what we do look at, however, I could say is that and it's a conversation within the fraternities is the question of are we evaluating the right thing? Is when something is selected as the winner, is that what the competition wants? Because again, it depends on what the competition wants, and how we're gonna find a fair way to do that. And with us, it's how could we have we evolved? Are we changing? Are we at the ultimate, most efficient, best use, best practices right now? And if we're not there, what aren't we implementing that we should be implementing? What aren't we using that we could take a look at? What improvements are out there that we should be exploring? Use of technology, use of other things. I mean, there are those types of conversations that I think we should be having a little bit more. But I think as it relates to the selection and stuff like that, more or less people are okay with it.
Duvon, I when I'm in the panyard, I tend to listen to the arranger. I tend to listen to what is coming from his mouth and what he's saying to the band. I think I look at an arranger as not just a choreographer, but somebody who is leading the band, and the band is as good as its leadership at times, if not all the time.
All the time. That's why we are DPPTT Renegades.
You said a few nights ago, success is a process. Now,
True.
I understand clearly what the point you were making with the band in terms of you're drilling the band. How do you feel about preparing your band? I know some persons put the responsibility in terms of the getting the band to execute the music in the hands of a drill master. But when I look at what you do there, you are a arranger and drill master too. You're there and you're getting involved in what's happening. And if you hear something a bit off, then you get involved in that. And what I notice also is you take different positions in the yard. There are times I see you step beyond the barricade and you make a step closer to the bleachers to listen. Creative persons like yourself are mavericks and eccentrics in some way. Is it that where you try to interpret what is happening with the band on a night-to-night basis and then process that privately and then come back to the yard with something different, or try to innovate along the way, meaning it's a process in terms of getting your journey to the final night?
You make mention of something that is very, very important, to the point where the drill master aspect or context is that putting things and putting information for the band to be on point, where you see Duvon Stewart doing it. Nobody knows the music of how the band wants to sing, or how the band wants to feel, how the band wants to taste, other than the arranger. Nobody. And the drill master may be or could be an enhanceable tool if it works for the band to be in a different place or in a worse place. But the right person to put in that position is the person who is doing the music. Because when I'm home in the morning, I rise and I thank God for life at 4 a.m., writing and transcribing and putting my music to light. I know what I want to hear. I know what I want to feel. I know what I want to hear from different sections. That's why you make an example of, you see me come out the barricade and I walk around to hear what is taking place. It's because I have an idea of knowing what I want to do. So by doing these things, I prepare the band to do such of what I ask of them to do, of when I ask them to do. The drill master could do as much, but yet still, he or she has to come to the arranger. This is what you want here. This is what you're supposed to do here. But the arranger is the individual. That is the key to that nice sauce that is put on a barbecue chicken. He is the real in making it possible. BPTT Renegades had drill masters in the past, and they have worked very successfully for us. And we had Ben Jackson, we had Miguel Lopez, we had Cleveland King, we had Andrew Charles, and they did a fine job in doing what they did. But at the end of the day, to put that final icing on the cake, or that nice brown sugar in that barbecue sauce to make that chicken taste good, the arranger is the individual to make it possible. So when you see me come out and I sit on the bleachers and I listen, I want to hear what you hear in the panyard. I want to feel what you feel in the panyard. So it gives me a sense of when the band is getting judged in the panyard and where I position myself. I want to be where somebody is when the band performing. I'm not just staying in the middle of the band and feeling the vibe from within the band. I want to be around the panyard just to hear the ambience of what is taking place, so I could know how to drill my band, how to make this point of music becomes more vocally heard or musically heard at any given point in time. But I have no negatives about drill masters working with bands, but the arranger, he or she is the final ingredient in making that potter pilau taste wicked.
I completely agree with you, Duvon, because no drill master will know as they're drilling a little section, a few bars or a section, they don't have the vision of the whole as the arranger does. And so there's nobody better than the arranger to teach it to the players. Because ultimately, as you're teaching the notes, this is going to be this phrased in this way. So I'm going to teach it in a way so that when they put these sections together, I've already trained them to form this arc, bit by bit. And so I agree with you 100%. So I hope they're paying you well because you're doing drill master and arranging.
Well, working for BPTT Renegades is not about the money,
Well,
it's not about the money.
I was hoping you was going and say yes, they pay you well, but okay, we'll go down that road.
Well, this band has been so close to my heart from since 1987 as a kid in Tobago. Listening to Pan in A minor by the late great Dr. Jit Samaru, and I heard his arrangements for the first time on a TV that the other hit the side to watch in Tobago. I was so blown away by hearing this infectious music in my ear, by reflecting on that with Michael Jordan's Gatorade slogan, "Want to be like Mike, I want to be like Dr. Jit Samaru." If the year comes around that Duvon Stewart win 8 panoramas, I'm going to retire. I'm going to done. I will not going to equal him.
So, gentlemen, time has run away with us. I'm being told quietly here that we spent an hour. Duvon Stewart and Colin Graves, thank you so much for making yourselves available. We learned a lot and the public learned a lot this afternoon. Thank you for your warmth and for everything that you've given to us.
Thank you so much.
And to all the listeners, there's only one place to be. 138 Renegades Way, every night from 8 p.m. until practice done. But yet still, let's appreciate and love the instrument. Let's support the band. Let's support the culture. Let's support the competition. But 138 Renegades Way, it's in our DNA.
Blessings, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. Take care.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. That's today's edition of the Hard Talk at Paul 102 Digital with Farid Ali as the host of the program. Straight ahead, we have news